The doors opened with a hiss that echoed through the empty corridor. Princess Nara stepped into the observation room, her forearms folded in the traditional pose of Valrine authority. Beyond the reinforced glass, floating in a blue containment field, was the human. 3 years. 3 years they had kept him in stasis, frozen between moments, while the Empire debated what to do with their prize. Nara had read every report, watched every recording of the Battle of Kessler's Gate 100 times. This single human had destroyed an entire battle fleet, 47 ships, 12,000 Valrine warriors gone. "Begin wake sequence," she commanded. The technicians worked their controls. The blue light around the human flickered and faded. His body lowered slowly to the floor of the containment cell. For a moment he remained still. Then his chest rose with a sharp breath. Nara studied him carefully. The report said humans were monsters, savage creatures that knew only violence, but the being before her looked almost fragile. His skin was pale from years without sunlight, marked with scars that crossed his chest and arms in patterns that told stories of survival. His black hair hung past his shoulders, unkempt and wild. The human's eyes opened. Dark brown, almost black. They focused immediately on her, sharp and aware. No confusion, no fear. He had been asleep for 3 years, and he woke like a predator sensing danger. "Do you understand me?" Nara asked in Standard Galactic. The human said nothing. He simply stared at her, his expression unreadable. "Your name is Taman. You are designated as War Criminal 7743. You destroyed Valrine Fleet Designation Omega-9, 47 vessels. You will answer for these crimes." Still, the human remained silent. He moved slowly, testing the limits of his weakened body. 3 years in stasis left muscles weak, but Nara could see him already adapting, shifting his weight, measuring the space of his cage. "Why did you do it?" she asked, leaning closer to the glass. "The colony world you protected, it was not even your home. You had no connection to those people. Why sacrifice everything for strangers?" The human looked at her then, really looked at her, and Nara felt something strange. The Valrine were a collective species. They thought together, felt together, moved as one through pheromone bonds. But this human's gaze was intensely individual, as if he saw her not as a princess or an interrogator, but as a singular being. "You wouldn't understand," he said finally. His voice was rough from years of silence, but the words were clear in perfect Standard Galactic. "Then make me understand." Taman moved to the edge of his containment field, as close as he could get to the glass separating them. "Your people came to that colony with warships. You demanded surrender. You gave them 1 hour to evacuate a planet of 2 million people. 1 hour. They were harboring human military assets," Nara replied, reciting the official report. "They refused to comply with imperial law. They were farmers, teachers, children." Taman's hands clenched into fists. "Your empire doesn't care about law. You care about control, and when someone says no, you burn their world. So you burned our fleet instead." "I gave you a choice too," Taman said quietly. "I broadcast a message to your admiral. Leave or I would stop you." He laughed. He said one human couldn't threaten the might of the Valrine Empire. A ghost of a smile crossed his face, bitter and cold. He was wrong. Nara pulled up the battle recordings on her datapad. She had watched them countless times, but something compelled her to see them again with the human standing before her. The footage showed Taman's small fighter craft weaving through the Valrine formation. Too fast, too unpredictable. Every military analyst agreed it should have been impossible. No pilot could withstand those accelerations. No ship that small could carry weapons powerful enough to threaten capital ships. But Taman had targeted the weak points, the exact locations where Valrine ship design had small vulnerabilities. He struck reactor cores, bridge connections, weapon arrays, and when his ammunition ran out, he used the debris field itself as weapons, calculating trajectories that turned destroyed ships into projectiles against their neighbors. "You killed thousands," Nara said softly. "I saved millions." Taman replied without hesitation, "And I'd do it again." The certainty in his voice shook something in Nara. The Valrine were taught that humans were chaos, that they acted without thinking, driven by animal instinct. But this human had planned every move, calculated every risk. He had chosen to face an entire fleet alone, knowing he would probably die. "Why?" she asked again. "Why would you throw your life away?" Taman was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. Because somebody has to stand up. Because if good people do nothing, then evil wins. Because those farmers and teachers and children deserved someone to fight for them. He looked directly at her. Don't your people have anything worth dying for? We have the Empire, Nara said automatically. We have our collective, our unity. That's not the same thing. Taman sat down on the floor of his cell, his energy already fading. 3 years in stasis took their toll. Unity imposed by force isn't unity. It's slavery with better marketing. Nara should have been offended. She should have ended the interview and recommended immediate execution. But instead she found herself curious. What do humans fight for if not empire? Each other, Taman said simply. We fight for the person next to us. For our friends, our families, for strangers who need help. We fight because we choose to, not because someone tells us we must. That sounds lonely, Nara said, surprised by her own honesty. Sometimes it is, Taman admitted, but it also means every bond we form by choice. Every friendship, every love, every loyalty, it's real because we chose it freely. He looked up at her again.
Can you say the same, Princess?
The question hung in the air between them. Nara thought about her life chosen for her before birth. Third daughter of the Emperor, designated for intelligence and diplomacy, bonded to her role by pheromones and duty. She had never questioned it before. The interview is over, she said abruptly, turning toward the door. Will you come back? Taman asked. Nara paused. Why would I? Because you want to understand. I can see it in your eyes. You're not like the others who've stood where you're standing. You actually want to know why humans are the way we are? Nara didn't answer. She left the observation room, the doors hissing shut behind her. But as she walked through the corridors of the prison station, she couldn't stop thinking about his words. That night, alone in her quarters, Nara did something forbidden. She accessed the human cultural database. The files kept locked by imperial order. She found music, strange and beautiful. She found poetry that spoke of love and loss in ways Valrine literature never did. She found art that celebrated the individual, the unique, the different. And deep in the restricted files, she found Earth. A blue world covered in water and green life. The human homeworld, beautiful and fragile. Taman hadn't seen it in 15 years, he said in one of the old interrogation reports. 15 years fighting far from home. Nara looked at the images of Earth and wondered what kind of species would travel so far from their world to fight for strangers. What kind of person would sacrifice everything for people they'd never met? She wondered what made someone like Taman. And despite herself, despite everything she'd been taught, she knew she would go back to that cell tomorrow. She would talk to the human again. Because he was right, she wanted to understand. Commander Doyen slammed his clawed hand on the council table, his antenna twitching with barely controlled rage. This is absurd. The human should have been executed 3 years ago. Every day we keep him alive is an insult to the warriors he killed. Nara sat calmly across from him, her 4 arms folded in diplomatic posture. Around them, the council chamber's holographic displays showed the current state of the war. Red zones marked human territory. Blue showed Valrine control. The colors mixed and blurred along the borders where fighting continued every day. The human has intelligence value, Nara said carefully. If we execute him, we learn nothing. If we study him, we might understand how to defeat his kind. We don't need to study them, Doyen snapped. We need to crush them. They're animals, Princess. Violent, chaotic animals. Before Nara could respond, the chamber doors opened. A human walked in, flanked by Valrine guards. She was tall and thin, wearing a simple gray suit. Her badge identified her as Ambassador Hana, representative of the Human Coalition. Counselors, Hana said with a slight bow, I've come to formally request the extradition of Taman, human citizen and soldier currently held in your custody. Doyen's laugh was harsh. You're a war criminal, you mean? He destroyed an entire fleet. A fleet that was about to commit genocide, Hana replied calmly. Taman saved 2 million innocent lives. By any reasonable law, his actions were justified defense of others. By imperial law, he's a mass murderer. Then we have a problem, Hana said, meeting Doyen's glare without flinching, because the Human Coalition won't rest until our soldier comes home. Nara watched the exchange carefully. She had been interviewing Taman for 3 weeks now, visiting his cell every day. Each conversation revealed new things about humans, aspects that didn't match the propaganda she'd been fed her entire life. Ambassador, Nara said, drawing attention to herself. May I ask you a question? Hana turned to her surprised. Royalty rarely addressed ambassadors directly. Of course, Princess. Why does your government care so much about one soldier? You have billions of humans. Taemin is just one man. Why risk diplomatic relations over him? Hana was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but firm. Because we don't leave our people behind. Because Taemin didn't act for personal gain or glory. He acted to save lives, and we honor that. Because every single human matters, not just as a number in our population, but as an individual worthy of being fought for. The concept was still strange to Nara. In Valrine society, the collective mattered. Individual lives were valued only for what they contributed to the whole. But humans seemed to believe each person had worth simply by existing. The council will consider your request, Nara said formally, but we cannot promise anything. After the meeting ended and Hana was escorted out, Doyun approached Nara. His scent carried undertones of suspicion. You're spending too much time with the human prisoner. I've read the reports. Hours every day. What could you possibly be learning that takes so long? Everything, Nara said honestly. Our intelligence on humans is wrong, Commander. They're not what we think they are. They're exactly what we think. Violent, unpredictable, dangerous. They're also artistic, philosophical, capable of incredible loyalty and love. Nara pulled up her datapad, showing him some of the things she'd learned. Did you know humans create music with hundreds of different styles? That they write stories just for entertainment, to explore ideas and emotions? That they form bonds with animals from other species and consider them family? Doyen waved a hand dismissively. Sentimentality. It makes them weak, does it? Nara challenged. Taemin faced an entire fleet alone because of that sentimentality. He had no logical reason to fight, no personal stake. But he fought anyway because his emotions demanded it. Is that weakness, Commander? Or is it a kind of strength we don't understand? Doyen's antenna flattened against his head, a sign of deep concern. Princess, I must speak plainly. The Emperor is worried about you. These interviews have changed you. You question things you never questioned before. You spend your nights researching human culture. This is dangerous. Truth is only dangerous to lies, Nara said quietly. Careful, Doyen warned. Such words sound like human philosophy. After Doyen left, Nara returned to her quarters. She pulled up the latest interview recording with Taemin. She had watched it 3 times already, but something about it kept pulling her back. In the recording, she had asked him about human love. The concept fascinated her. Valrine bonded through pheromones and duty. Relationships were assigned for genetic compatibility and social benefit. But humans chose their partners based on emotions. Love isn't logical, Taemin had said in the recording. You can't calculate it or predict it. Sometimes you love people who are bad for you. Sometimes you love people you shouldn't. But that's what makes it real. It's a choice you make every day, even when it's hard. Have you been in love? She had asked. Taemin had smiled, sad and distant. Once, a long time ago. She was a pilot, brave and brilliant. She died in a battle I wasn't there to help with. I think about her sometimes, wonder what life we could have had if the war hadn't taken her. And you never bonded with anyone else? I fight too much, move too much. It wouldn't be fair to anyone to love them when I know I might not come back. He had looked at her through the glass. Love requires presence, Princess. You can't love someone from a distance. Not really. Nara had ended the interview shortly after, uncomfortable with the feelings his words stirred in her. Now, alone in her room, she admitted something she had been avoiding for days. She looked forward to the interviews. She thought about Taemin when she should be thinking about her duties. She found herself caring whether he was comfortable, whether the guards treated him well, whether he was lonely in that cell. This was wrong. He was a prisoner, an enemy. She was Valrine royalty. These feelings made no sense, but humans had taught her something new. Feelings didn't have to make sense to be real. The next morning, Nara arrived at Taemin's cell earlier than usual. He was awake, sitting in meditation pose on the floor. His eyes opened when she entered. You're early, he said. I couldn't sleep, Nara admitted.
I keep thinking about what you said yesterday.
About love. Taemin stood slowly, walking to the glass that separated them. What about it? I don't understand how you make it work. How do you choose to love someone without pheromones guiding you? How do you know if it's real? You just know, Taman said. It's like being hungry or tired. You don't question if your hunger is real. You feel it and you know. But feelings can be wrong. They can lead you to make bad choices. Sure, Taman agreed. Love makes people do stupid things all the time. But it also makes people do beautiful things. Brave things. It makes us better than we'd be alone. Nara pressed one hand against the glass. Do you think a Valrine could love a human? Or a human love a Valrine? Taman looked at her hand on the glass, then slowly raised his own to match it. They couldn't touch through the barrier, but the gesture was intimate anyway. I think love doesn't care about species or politics or anything logical. I think it happens when two people see each other, really see each other, and choose to care anyway. Even if it's impossible, Nara whispered. Especially then, Taman said softly. The impossible loves are the ones worth fighting for. They stood like that for a long moment, hands separated by glass and everything their world stood for. Nara knew this was dangerous. She knew every moment she spent here made her more compromised, more vulnerable. But she also knew she would come back tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day until something forced her to stop. Because Taman was right about one thing. She saw him now. Not as a prisoner or a monster or a war criminal. She saw him as a person who had made impossible choices to save people he didn't know, a person who understood loneliness and sacrifice, a person who somehow, impossibly made her feel less alone. Even if loving him was the most dangerous thing she could do, Nara couldn't stop herself from choosing it anyway, just like a human would. The alarm started during Nara's morning interview with Taman. Red lights flooded the corridor, and the station's automated voice announced in calm tones that made the words more terrifying. Krill swarm detected. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Taman was on his feet instantly, every muscle tensed. How many? I don't know, Nara said, already pulling up tactical displays on her datapad. The numbers made her blood run cold. 300 ships. Maybe more. They're everywhere. The Krill were the nightmare that united humans and Valrine in mutual terror. Insect-like creatures that traveled in vast swarms, consuming everything in their path. They didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners. They simply ate and moved on. You need to evacuate, Taman said, moving to the edge of his containment field. Get to the escape pods now. I can't just leave you here. The words came out before Nara could stop them. Yes, you can. I'm a prisoner, remember? Save yourself, princess. Another explosion rocked the station. Closer this time. Through the observation window, Nara could see Krill boarding craft latching onto the station's hull like parasites. They would cut through in minutes. She thought about protocols, about duty, about what her father and the council would expect her to do. Then she thought about Taman trapped in his cell, helpless, waiting to die because her people had imprisoned him. Computer, she commanded. Authorization Nara 77 Blue. Release containment field in cell block 9. That requires commander-level clearance, the computer replied. I am a princess of the Valrine Empire. Release the field, now. The blue energy surrounding Taman flickered and died. He stumbled slightly, still weak from captivity, then looked at her in shock. What are you doing? Something stupid, Nara said, hitting the door release. The glass barrier between them slid open for the first time in 3 years. Can you fight? Taman's smile was sharp and dangerous. Always. They ran through corridors filled with smoke and chaos. Valrine soldiers rushed past them toward the breach points. None tried to stop them. Everyone had bigger problems than one escaped prisoner. We need to reach the escape pod bay, Nara said, checking her datapad. It's 3 levels down. We won't make it, Taman said. He grabbed her arm, pulling her to a stop. Listen, Nara heard it then. The clicking, chittering sound of Krill warriors. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, already inside the station. Armory, Taman said. Where's the nearest armory? Nara pulled up the station layout. 2 corridors north. But Taman, you've been in stasis for 3 years. You're weak. Weak by my standards is still stronger than most, he said. Trust me. They found the armory door breached, a dead Valrine guard lying nearby. Taman grabbed weapons with practiced efficiency. A plasma rifle, 2 pistols, combat knife. He moved like violence was a language he spoke fluently. Do you know how to shoot? He asked Nara. I'm trained in ceremonial combat, not actual warfare. Good enough. He handed her a pistol. Point at what you want dead, pull the trigger. The gun does the rest. The first krill appeared at the end of the corridor. It was massive, easily twice Taemin's size, with mandibles that could cut through steel. It saw them and shrieked, a sound that hurt to hear. Taemin didn't hesitate. He fired 3 shots, each one hitting a critical point on the creature's carapace. The krill stumbled and fell. 2 more appeared behind it. "Run," Taemin said calmly, and then he was moving. Nara had seen the battle recordings. She had watched Taemin destroy an entire fleet, but seeing him fight in person was different. He moved like water, like wind, like something that couldn't be touched. The krill were fast, but he was faster. They were strong, but he was precise. Every shot found its target. Every movement had purpose. He protected Nara without seeming to think about it, always placing himself between her and danger. They fought their way through corridors that became killing zones. More krill came, more died. Taemin started to slow, his breathing harder. 3 years in stasis showed their cost, but he never stopped. "There," Nara pointed at a junction ahead. "The escape bay is through there." An explosion tore through the wall next to them. Nara felt herself falling, felt metal cutting into her side. Then Taemin's arms were around her, pulling her away from the collapsing section. "I've got you," he said. "Stay with me." Nara looked down at her side. Purple blood stained her uniform. The wound wasn't fatal, but it hurt more than anything she'd felt before. "I can't run," she said. "Then I'll carry you." Taemin lifted her like she weighed nothing. He ran through the chaos, rifle held in one hand while the other held her against his chest. More krill appeared. He shot them without breaking stride. The escape bay was a disaster. Pods were already launching, leaving empty berths behind. Bodies lay everywhere, Valrine and krill both. The station groaned around them, structure failing. Taemin set Nara down near an intact pod. "Get in! What about you?" "I'm coming. But I need to seal this door first or the krill will follow us." Nara grabbed his arm with 2 of her hands. "Taemin, if you seal it from the outside, you'll be trapped. I'll be fast," he promised. Then he kissed her. It was brief, desperate, nothing like the romantic gestures in human stories. But it was real, his lips against hers, warm and alive. "Get in the pod," he said again. Nara climbed into the small craft, her wound screaming protest. Through the viewport, she watched Taemin work the door controls. The heavy blast door began to close. Krill poured into the bay, drawn by the escaping pods. Taemin fired his rifle until it ran dry. Then he used his pistols. Then just the knife. He fought like a human myth, like the stories of ancient warriors who held impossible odds through pure will. The door was almost closed. Just a few more seconds, a krill warrior got through, massive and fast. Its blade-like arm swung at Taemin. He dodged, but not quite fast enough. The blade cut across his chest, drawing blood. Taemin fell. "No!" Nara screamed, but the sound was lost in the chaos. Somehow, impossibly, Taemin got back up. Blood ran down his chest, but he was moving. He threw himself through the narrowing gap in the blast door, rolling into the escape bay as the door sealed behind him. Nara hit the pod door release. "Get in!" Taemin stumbled to the pod, falling into the seat beside her. His hands found the launch controls. "Hold on!" The pod launched as the station tore itself apart behind them. Through the viewport, Nara watched the prison facility explode, scattering debris and krill into the void. They floated in the darkness of space, the pod's small engine pushing them away from the destruction. Emergency lights cast everything in dim red. "You're bleeding," Nara said, reaching for Taemin's wound. "So are you," he replied, touching the cut on her side gently. They had one medical kit in the pod. They used it on each other, hands shaking, both of them too aware of how close death had come. "Thank you," Nara said when they finished. "For saving me." "You saved me first," Taemin reminded her. "You released me. You could have left me in that cell. I couldn't do that. Why not?" Nara looked at him, at this human who had become more important to her than duty or politics or anything else. "Because you matter. Not as a prisoner or an intelligence asset. You matter as a person. And she hesitated, then continued, "I couldn't let you die." They were alone in the tiny pod, floating between stars, both their peoples hunting them. Everything was wrong and complicated and impossible. But when Taemin took her hand in his, when he smiled despite the pain and exhaustion, Nara felt something she had never felt before. She felt free. "We should check for rescue signals," Taemin said eventually. "See if anyone's looking for survivors." "They'll arrest you if they find us," Nara said. "Both sides will. You're an escaped prisoner and I'm a traitor for releasing you. Then maybe we don't send a signal yet, Taman suggested. Maybe we just float here for a while, together. Nara leaned against him carefully, mindful of both their wounds. Outside, stars turned slowly. Inside, two people from different worlds held each other and wondered what came next. Whatever happened, they would face it together. 4 days. They had been drifting for 4 days in the escape pod, rationing water and emergency rations designed for Valrine biology that made Taman sick to his stomach. You don't have to eat it, Nara said, watching him force down another bite of the purple nutrient paste. Need the calories, Taman replied. Fighting burns energy. So does healing. He touched the bandage on his chest where the krill had cut him. It was healing slower than it should, infection setting in despite their limited medical supplies. Nara checked her own wound. The cut on her side had closed, leaving a dark purple scar. Every time she moved, it pulled and ached, reminding her of how close they had come to death. The pod was built for 2 Valrine, which meant it was cramped for Taman and barely adequate for Nara with her 4 arms. They had to coordinate every movement to avoid bumping into each other. The recycled air smelled stale. The temperature control kept failing, swinging between too hot and too cold. But Nara had never been happier in her life. Tell me about Earth, she said. It had become their evening ritual, sharing stories while they waited to see if rescue or death would find them first. Taman smiled, his eyes distant. I grew up in the southern continent near the coast. Every morning the sun would rise over the ocean, turning the water gold. We'd run on the beach before school, my brother and I, racing to see who could reach the old pier first. You have a brother? Had, Taman corrected softly. He died in the early days of the war. Pilot like me, like the woman I loved. The war takes everyone eventually. Nara reached across the small space, taking his hand. I'm sorry? Long time ago, but his grip on her hand said otherwise. What about you? What's your home like? Cold, Nara said. The Imperial Palace is all stone and metal. Beautiful, they say, but I always found it empty. Too many rooms, too many protocols. I was third daughter, so I mattered less than my older sisters. They're the important ones, bred for leadership and strategy. I was supposed to be the scholar, the diplomat. She laughed bitterly. Look how that turned out. You did your job perfectly, Taman said. You studied me. You tried to understand. It's not your fault that understanding led to caring. Is that what this is? Caring? Taman moved closer as the pod allowed. I think it's more than that. At least it is for me. They had avoided the conversation for days, dancing around the truth they both felt. But here, alone between stars, hiding seemed pointless. I've never felt this way before, Nara admitted. The Valrine don't have romance like humans do. We bond for genetic purposes, for political alliances. What I feel for you, it doesn't make sense in my world. Does it have to make sense? No, Nara said. I suppose it doesn't. She had 4 arms to his 2, compound eyes to his simple ones, purple blood to his red. Everything about them was different. But when Taman touched her face gently, tracing the line of her cheekbone, those differences seemed meaningless. I want you to know something, Taman said seriously. When we get rescued, whatever happens, I'll protect you. Human ship, Valrine ship, doesn't matter. You saved my life. I won't forget that. You saved mine too, Nara reminded him. Then we're even. He smiled. Which means anything from here on is a choice, not an obligation. And you choose to protect me? I choose to be with you, Taman said. For however long we have, even if it's just a few more days in this tiny pod. Nara kissed him then, properly this time, not the desperate gesture during the escape, but something slower, deeper. His lips were warm against hers, his hands careful on her body, aware of her wound, treating her like something precious. They made love in the cramped space, moving carefully around injuries and the awkward physics of zero gravity. It was clumsy and strange and perfect. Taman's skin was soft where hers was hard, warm where hers was cool. Every difference became something to explore, to understand. Afterward, they floated together in the darkness, wrapped in each other. The pod's viewport showed them the universe, billions of stars scattered across the void. Do you think we have a future? Nara asked quietly. Or is this just something beautiful before the end? Taman was quiet for a moment. I've been a soldier my whole life. I learned not to think about the future because tomorrow might not come. But with you, He held her closer. I want to believe in tomorrow. I want to imagine a place where we can be together without hiding. Maybe a small planet somewhere away from both our peoples. Just us. Just us, Nara repeated, liking the sound of it. On the 5th day, the pod's sensors detected a ship approaching. They both tensed, knowing their time alone was ending. Human design, Taman said, reading the signatures. Military patrol vessel. They'll arrest me, Nara said. I'm Valreen. The enemy. Then we don't answer their hail, Taman said firmly. Taman, they're your people. You're a war hero to them. They'll take you home. Home isn't a place anymore, he said, looking at her. It's a person. And my person is right here. The human ship, designated the Morning Star, hailed them repeatedly. Finally, Taman answered. Voice only. This is Lieutenant Taman of the Colonial Defense Force. I'm requesting immediate extraction. Acknowledged, came the reply. Stand by for docking procedures. We thought you were dead, Lieutenant. This is going to make a lot of people very happy. The ship docked with their pod. Airlock seals engaged with mechanical precision. Taman squeezed Nara's hand once before the door opened. Captain G1 stood in the airlock, a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Those eyes widened when she saw Nara. Lieutenant, she said carefully, you have a Valreen in your pod. Yes, ma'am, Taman replied. This is Princess Nara. She saved my life. She's under my protection. She's an enemy combatant. She's a person who deserves sanctuary. Taman's voice was hard, the soldier returning. I'm invoking Rescue Protocol 7. Any being who provides material aid during survival situations is granted temporary asylum. That's military law, Captain. G1 studied them both. Nara could see the calculation in her eyes. One returned war hero, one enemy princess. The politics were complicated. Fine, G1 said finally. But she stays in the brig until we reach command. For her protection as much as ours. No brig, Taman said. She stays with me or I don't come aboard. You'd refuse rescue over a Valreen? I'd refuse rescue over someone I care about, Taman corrected. Species is irrelevant. The standoff lasted a long moment. Then G1 sighed. You always were stubborn. Fine, she can stay in guest quarters. But Taman, you realize this is going to cause problems. I'm used to problems, Taman said. They were brought aboard the Morning Star, given food and real medical attention. The crew stared at them, whispered among themselves. Nara felt their hostility, their confusion at seeing one of their enemies treated as an honored guest. That night, in the quarters they were assigned, Nara stood at the viewport, looking at the stars. Behind her, Taman finished dressing his newly treated wounds. Are you afraid? She asked. Terrified, he admitted, but not of dying. I'm afraid of losing you. Afraid they'll separate us, send you back to your people or imprison you. Afraid I won't be strong enough to stop them. Nara turned to face him. Then we'll be strong together. They held each other as the ship carried them toward an uncertain future, knowing that the hard part was just beginning. But they had survived the void between stars. They had found each other across the gap between species and wars. Whatever came next, they would face it the way humans did best. Together, defiant, refusing to let anyone tell them who they could love. The Morning Star docked at Command Station Archer 3 days later. Word had spread through the fleet. Lieutenant Taman was alive, rescued from a krill attack. But the celebrations turned to confusion when reports mentioned the Valreen princess traveling with him. Taman stood in Captain G1's ready room, watching through the viewport as military ships patrolled the station's perimeter. Behind him, Nara waited in their quarters under guard, officially for her protection, but they both knew the truth. They want you back in service, G1 said, pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid. She offered one to Taman. Whiskey. Real earth whiskey. Been saving it for something worth celebrating. Taman took the glass but didn't drink. I'm not going back. You haven't even heard the offer. I don't need to hear it. The answer is no. G1 drank her whiskey in one swallow. The war isn't going well, Taman. We're losing ground on 3 fronts. Colony worlds are falling. Millions of humans are dying or being enslaved by the Valreen Empire. We need our best fighters. We need you. I've done my part. 3 years in a Valreen prison. I paid my debt. Your debt? G1's voice rose. Taman, you're a hero. Children tell stories about you. You're the man who destroyed an entire fleet to save strangers. You're what we need people to believe in. I'm also a person who wants to live. Taman said quietly. I've fought since I was 16 years old. I've killed more beings than I can count. I've watched friends die, watched worlds burn. I'm tired, Captain. I want it to stop. We all want it to stop, Ji-won said. But it won't stop until we win or lose. And right now we're losing, a door chimed. Counselor Minho entered without waiting for permission. He was a thin man with cold eyes, wearing the black uniform of political oversight. He looked at Taman like examining a weapon that had rusted. Lieutenant Taman, Minho said formally, I've been authorized by the Colonial Defense Council to offer you immediate reinstatement at your previous rank, with command of your own Special Operations Unit. We'll give you the best equipment, the best team, whatever you need in exchange for, Taman asked, though he already knew. In exchange for you doing what you do best, hunting Valrine, destroying their ships, winning this war. Minho smiled, sharp and cold. We'll even let you pick your targets. The fleet that captured you is still operational. We can give you revenge. I don't want revenge. Then what do you want? Minho demanded. Because right now you're a propaganda problem. The great hero Taman hiding behind a desk while humans die. Or worse, sympathizing with the enemy. He glanced at the door toward where Nara waited, fraternizing with them. Taman's hand tightened on his glass. Careful, Counselor. I'm simply stating facts. You were captured by the Valrine, held prisoner, subjected to who knows what kind of conditioning or brainwashing. Then you escape with one of their princesses and suddenly you're refusing to fight. It looks suspicious, Lieutenant. It looks like I found something worth protecting more than your war, Taman said. Ji-won stepped between them. Minho, that's enough. No, it's not. Minho turned to face Taman fully. Let me be clear about your situation. You refuse to fight, fine. You'll be dishonorably discharged, branded a deserter. Every colony world will know the hero they believed in turned his back when they needed him most. Your legacy becomes shame. I can live with that. Can you live with what happens to your princess? Minho asked. Because if you're not serving the coalition, she's not a protected asset anymore. She's an enemy combatant. We'll send her back to the Valrine. Let them know their princess was sleeping with a human soldier. I wonder how they'll reward her for that betrayal. Taman moved so fast Ji-won barely caught him. His hand was around Minho's throat, pressing him against the wall. Threaten her again, please. Stand down, Lieutenant, Ji-won ordered. That's a direct order. Slowly, Taman released Minho, who stumbled away, gasping. You're proving my point, Minho wheezed. You've been compromised. You care more about one alien than your own species. I care about people, Taman said. All people. Not just the ones who look like me. After they were dismissed, Taman returned to his quarters. Nara sat on the bed, her forearms wrapped around herself. She looked up when he entered, and he saw tears on her face, the purple streaks unmistakable. I heard through the door, she said. I'm sorry. This is my fault. Nothing is your fault, Taman said, sitting beside her. They're trying to manipulate me. Use you as leverage. And it's working. Nara took his hand. Taman, you should do what they ask. Go back to fighting. I'll return to my people. We'll both survive. And never see each other again. Live knowing you're out there somewhere, wondering if I'm dead or if you're safe. Taman shook his head. That's not survival. That's just slower death. But if you don't fight, they'll brand you a coward. Everything you've done, everything you've sacrificed, it'll mean nothing. It'll mean I chose love over war, Taman said. That seems pretty significant to me. Nara leaned against him. What do? We run, Taman said simply. There are ships on this station. Small ones, fast ones. We steal one and disappear into the frontier. Find some quiet world where neither empire reaches. They'll hunt us. Let them try. Taman, you can't throw your life away for me. I'm not throwing it away, he said gently. I'm finally choosing what to do with it. Every day since I was 16, someone else made my choices. The military told me where to go, who to fight, who to kill. For the first time in my life, I get to decide for myself. He cupped her face in his hands. And I choose you. They spent the night planning their escape. The station had a small craft bay on the lower levels, less guarded than the main hangars. If they could reach it, if they could get past security, they might have a chance. But around midnight, alarms started blaring. Taman pulled up the room's computer display. Red alerts flooded the screen. Unauthorized launch detected, suspect fleeing on stolen shuttle. That's not us, Nara said, confused. Then Taman understood. Captain Ji-won, she's making a distraction. The door to their quarters unlocked. A message appeared on the screen. Bay 7, you have 20 minutes. Don't waste them. J. They ran through corridors filled with chaos, soldiers rushing toward the main hangars where Jiwon had launched her decoy. Bay 7 was almost deserted. Just one guard who looked at them, looked at the chaos on his own display and turned away. I didn't see anything, the guard muttered. The ship waiting for them was small but fast. A courier vessel with long-range capabilities. Taemin recognized Jiwon's touch. She'd prepared this, probably from the moment they came aboard. They launched into the void, alarms screaming behind them. Taemin pushed the engines hard, jumping to light speed the moment they cleared the station's gravity well. When they were safely away, Nara found a message recorded on the ship's computer. Jiwon's face appeared, tired but smiling. Taemin, if you're seeing this, you made it good. You deserve happiness even if the galaxy doesn't think so. I've included coordinates for some frontier worlds where the war hasn't reached yet. Pick one, build a life. Forget about empires and battles and everything else. Jiwon paused, her smile fading. But I need you to understand something. People will call you a deserter. They'll say you abandoned humanity when we needed you most. Let them, you've given enough. You fought longer and harder than anyone should have to. If anyone has earned the right to walk away, it's you. The message ended. Nara looked at Taemin, seeing the pain in his eyes. Do you regret it? She asked, leaving? Taemin considered. No, but it hurts anyway. Like leaving a part of myself behind. We can go back. It's not too late. Yes, it is, Taemin said. The moment I chose you, I crossed a line I can't uncross. Going back now would just mean losing you and my honor. At least this way, I keep what matters. He pulled up the navigation charts, examining the coordinates Jiwon had sent. Dozens of worlds, all far from the war. Places where they could disappear. Pick one, he said to Nara. Our future. Your choice. Nara studied the list, her 4 hands working the controls. Finally, she selected a small world marked as Outpost Sejong, a neutral trading station on the edge of explored space. There, she said. That's where we start over. Taemin set the course and they jumped toward their new life, leaving behind everything they'd known for a chance at something neither of them had ever really had. Peace. Outpost Sejong floated in the void like a rusted flower, its petals made of old station modules bolted together over decades. It was home to 5,000 beings from a dozen species, all of them running from something. No one asked questions here. No one looked too closely at your past. Taemin and Nara rented a small apartment in the outer ring, paying with the credits Jiwon had loaded onto their ship. The space was barely bigger than their escape pod had been, but it had a real bed and a window that looked out at stars. It's perfect, Nara said, setting down their few possessions. It's a closet, Taemin replied, but he was smiling. They built a life in the margins. Taemin found work as a security consultant, teaching station merchants how to defend against pirates. Nara used her diplomatic training to help mediate trade disputes. They earned enough to eat, to pay rent, to be invisible. For 3 months, they were happy. They would wake together, work their jobs, come home to cook simple meals in their tiny kitchen. At night, they would lie in bed and talk about meaningless things, about what color to paint their walls, about whether the station's hydroponics bay grew decent vegetables. It was ordinary, mundane, everything they'd never had. I'm pregnant, Nara said one morning. Taemin dropped the pan he was holding. Eggs splattered across the floor. What? Pregnant. Nara's 4 hands moved nervously. I didn't think it was possible. Humans and Valrine were too different biologically, but apparently we're more compatible than anyone knew. Taemin sat down hard. A baby, we're going to have a baby. Are you angry? Angry? No. Terrified? Yes. Completely unprepared, absolutely. But angry? He laughed, slightly hysterical. Nara, this is the best news I've ever gotten. We're going to have a family. She moved to him and he pulled her close. What if they find us? She whispered. What if our child becomes a target because of who we are? Then we'll protect them, Taemin said firmly. Together, like we protect each other. 2 weeks later, the assassins came. Taemin sensed them first, old combat instincts screaming danger. He was walking back from work when he spotted them. 3 Valrine warriors in civilian clothes but moving with military precision. They were scanning the crowd, looking for someone, looking for Nara. He took a different route home, coming in through the maintenance corridors. Nara was in their apartment reading medical files about human Valrine hybrid pregnancies. "We need to leave," Taman said urgently. "Now? What's wrong?" "Valrine military here hunting. They grabbed what they could carry, which wasn't much. Everything they'd built in 3 months fit in 2 bags. They were halfway to the docking bay when the first assassin found them. She was fast, enhanced with combat augments that made her forearms blur with speed. Taman barely got Nara behind him before the assassin attacked. He'd been out of practice. 3 months of peace had dulled his edges. The assassin's blade cut across his shoulder, drawing blood. But Taman had something the assassin didn't, a reason to fight beyond orders. He broke her arm first, then her knee. She fell, and he didn't stop to finish her. They ran. More assassins appeared. The station erupted into chaos. Taman fought through them, protecting Nara, but there were too many. A blade found his leg. Another cut across his back. "Taman!" Nara screamed. He stumbled but kept moving. Their ship was close, just across the main plaza. They could make it. They had to make it. Then the human special forces team appeared from the opposite direction. 4 soldiers in black armor, weapons raised. The lead soldier's voice came through external speakers. "Taman, stand down. By order of the Colonial Defense Council, you're under arrest for desertion." They were trapped, Valrine assassins behind them, human soldiers in front. The station's security was evacuating civilians, not caring about the politics of who was hunting whom. "I'll surrender," Taman said, stepping forward. "Just let her go." "No deals," the lead soldier said. "The princess is a war criminal. She's coming with us, like hell she is." Taman attacked. He was exhausted, wounded, outnumbered, but he was still the man who had destroyed a fleet. He moved through the soldiers like a storm, disarming one, breaking another's helmet seal, forcing them back. Behind him, Nara faced the Valrine assassins. She had never been a warrior, but fear for Taman made her dangerous. She fought with improvised weapons, a metal bar from the station's construction, pure desperation. The battle spilled across the plaza. Station residents fled or watched from safe distances, recording everything on their devices. The story would spread. The human war criminal and the Valrine princess fighting both empires for their freedom. Taman felt the bullet before he heard the shot. It punched through his side, burning hot. He fell to one knee, vision swimming. "Taman!" Nara's voice, terrified. He saw her running toward him, saw the Valrine assassin behind her, blade raised, saw everything about to end. Nara saw it too. She turned fast enough to intercept the blade. It was meant for Taman's back. Instead, it found her chest. Time stopped. Nara fell, purple blood spreading across her clothing. The assassin looked shocked, as if she hadn't meant to strike so precisely, hadn't meant to hit the killing blow. Something broke in Taman. The part of him that had tried to be peaceful, that had tried to leave the killer behind, shattered completely. He became what he'd been trained to be, death in human form. The assassins died in seconds. The human soldiers died in minutes. Taman moved through them like judgment, like the end of all things. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He simply killed everything between him and Nara. When it was over, the plaza was silent except for alarms and his own ragged breathing. Bodies lay everywhere. Taman stumbled to Nara, falling to his knees beside her. "No, no, no," he whispered, pressing his hands against her wound. Blood poured through his fingers. "Stay with me. Please stay with me." Nara's eyes opened slightly. "The baby, you're both going to be fine," Taman lied. "I've got you. I'm going to fix this." "Taman." Her hand touched his face, leaving purple blood on his cheek. "Promise me. If I don't make it, promise you'll take care of our child. You're going to make it, promise, I promise," he said, tears streaming down his face. "But you're going to be there. You're going to hold our baby. We're going to grow old together on some quiet world." "You promised me that." "Tried," Nara whispered. "Tried to give you peace. You did. You gave me everything." Station security finally arrived, led by the station master, a grizzled alien who'd seen everything twice. He looked at the carnage, at Taman holding his dying mate, and made a decision. Get them to medical. Now. They rushed Nara to the station's hospital. The doctors worked for hours while Taman sat outside, still covered in blood, both his and others. The station master sat with him, saying nothing, just present. Finally, a doctor emerged. "She's stable, barely. The wound damaged critical organs, but we've repaired what we can, however." "However what?" Taman demanded. "She'll need years of treatment to fully heal. We can put her in medical stasis, slow her body's functions to almost nothing while we work. It's the only way to save her. And the baby? We can maintain the pregnancy in artificial gestation. Your child will be safe. Taman looked through the window at Nara. Unconscious, machines keeping her alive. Do it, whatever it takes. Save them both. The cost, I'll pay it. Whatever it takes. The doctor nodded. Then we begin immediately. They moved Nara to a stasis pod that night. Taman stood beside her, holding her hand until the last moment before they sealed her away. I'll keep you safe, he promised. Both of you. I'll fight off anyone who tries to hurt you. I'll become the monster again if I have to. Just come back to me, the pod sealed. Nara's face disappeared behind frost and machinery. Taman stood there for a long time, watching the monitors that tracked her slowed heartbeat. Then he left the medical bay and went to the station master's office. I need weapons, Taman said. Lots of them. And I need to know when either empire sends people after us again. You're staying? The station master asked. I'm staying. For however long it takes. 10 years, 20, a lifetime. I'll guard her until she wakes up. Both sides will send more hunters. Let them come, Taman said. And his voice was empty of everything but cold promise. I'll kill them all. The station master looked at this human. This man who just destroyed 2 elite teams alone, who was promising a decade of violence to protect one person. You really love her that much? More, Taman said simply. I love her more than that. So began the long watch. Taman became a permanent resident of Outpost Sejong, living in the medical bay, sleeping in chairs near Nara's pod. And when the assassins came, as they always did, he met them with all the skill and brutality that had made him legendary. He became the station's unofficial guardian, the monster that protected their neutral ground, and everyone learned a simple truth. If you wanted to live on Sejong, you left the human and his sleeping princess alone, because the man who loved her would kill anyone who didn't. 10 years passed like a long nightmare. Nara opened her eyes to white ceiling panels and the steady beep of medical monitors. Her body felt strange, heavy as if she'd been sleeping for a very long time. She tried to move and found tubes and wires connected to her arms. Easy, a voice said. A human doctor appeared in her vision, smiling gently. Don't try to move yet. You've been in stasis for a decade. Your body needs time to adjust. 10 years? Nara's voice came out as a croak. Where is Taman? He's here. He's always here. The doctor glanced toward a corner of the room. But Princess, before you see him, I need to prepare you. He's different than you remember. Different how? The doctor hesitated. 10 years of fighting takes a toll on anyone, but especially on someone who fought as hard as he did to protect you. They let Taman in an hour later, after they'd removed most of the medical equipment and helped Nara sit up. She heard him before she saw him, his footsteps slow and careful as if approaching something that might break. Then he was there, standing in the doorway. Nara barely recognized him. The man she remembered had been lean and strong, with eyes that held sadness but also hope. This man was harder, scarred in ways that went beyond the physical. His hair was longer, streaked with gray despite his young age. His face was gaunt, carved down to essentials. But it was his eyes that hurt to see, empty of almost everything except relief when he saw her awake. Nara, he said, and his voice broke on her name. Taman. She reached for him, and he came to her like a drowning man reaching for air. She held him with all 4 arms, feeling how thin he'd become, how he shook against her. You're awake, he whispered. You're really awake. I was starting to forget what your voice sounded like. I'm here. I'm okay. She pulled back to look at him. What happened to you? I kept my promise, Taman said simply. I kept you safe. Over the next few days, Nara learned the truth. The doctors and station staff told her in pieces, trying to soften it. But there was no gentle way to describe 10 years of constant warfare. Taman had turned the medical bay into a fortress. He'd fought off 17 separate assassination attempts from Valrine forces, 23 attacks from human special operations teams, countless bounty hunters, mercenaries, and opportunists who thought they could claim the reward money both empires had placed on their heads. He'd killed them all. He never left the station master told her. Never left this bay for more than a few hours. He slept in that chair next to your pod every night. And whenever enemies came, he became something else. Something else? The station master showed her security footage. Nara watched in horror as Taman fought through armed teams with precision that seemed almost mechanical. There was no hesitation in his movements, no mercy in his actions. He killed efficiently, quickly, and without emotion. The war ended 5 years ago, the station master continued. Stalemate between humanity and the Valrine Empire. Peace treaty signed, but neither side would call off the hunters. Too much pride involved, I suppose, so Taman kept fighting, year after year alone. Why didn't you help him? We offered. Many times. He refused. Said this was his burden, his choice. The station master paused. There's something else you should know. Your daughter, my daughter, the pregnancy was maintained during your stasis. We delivered her 9 years ago. She's healthy, brilliant, beautiful. And she's been raised by Taman between battles. They brought her in that afternoon, a girl of 9 years, with Nara's purple-tinted skin and compound eyes but Taman's facial structure and black hair. She was tall for her age, moving with careful grace, watching everything with sharp intelligence. Mother, the girl said, formal and uncertain. My name is Heyun. Father told me stories about you every day. He said you were brave and kind and the reason he kept fighting. Nara started crying, pulling this impossible child into her arms. Heyun, my daughter. You're real. Of course I'm real, Haun said, matter of fact. Father says I'm the best thing that ever happened to him. Well, second best. You're first. Over dinner, Heyun talked constantly. 9 years of stored conversation pouring out. She told Nara about growing up on the station, about the dozen species she'd learned languages from, about her studies in mathematics and biology. About her father. He teaches me fighting, Heyun said. Says I need to protect myself because I'm unique. Half human, half Valrine. Some people don't like that. But Father says being different is good. Says the galaxy needs more different people. What else does he teach you? Nara asked. Heyun's expression grew serious. He teaches me when Father is awake and when the killer is awake. What? Father has nightmares, bad ones. When he sleeps, sometimes the killer comes. His body fights enemies that aren't there. He thrashes and sometimes screams. I learned early, don't wake him. Don't touch him. Don't make noise. Just wait for him to wake up on his own. Nara felt her heart break. How often does this happen? Every time he sleeps deeply, so he doesn't sleep much, maybe 2 hours a night in short pieces. He says it's okay. Says humans can adapt to anything, but I see how tired he is. Heyun looked at her mother with eyes too old for her age. He broke himself keeping us safe. I understand that. I just wish he didn't have to. That night, Nara insisted Taman sleep in the medical bay's private room they'd assigned her. He'd been living in that chair for 10 years. He deserved a bed. I'm fine in the chair, he protested. Taman, please. I want you close. I want to hold you while you sleep. He finally agreed, more from exhaustion than anything else. They lay together in the narrow bed. Nara wrapped around him, feeling how different his body was. Thinner, harder, covered in new scars. Tell me, she said softly. Tell me what it was like. I don't want to burden you. You carried this alone for 10 years. Let me help carry it now, so Taman talked, quietly, haltingly. He told her about the loneliness, about watching her sleep and wondering if she'd ever wake up, about Han's birth, holding his daughter for the first time and being terrified he'd break her, about teaching her to walk while learning to be a father, about answering her endless questions while fighting off killers between lessons. The worst part wasn't the fighting, he said. I'm good at fighting. Always have been. The worst part was being alone with it, having no one to talk to about the fear, the guilt, the constant vigilance. Heyun was too young to understand. The station staff tried to help, but they're not you. Nara held him tighter. I'm so sorry. I should have been there. You were dying. You did nothing wrong. He kissed her forehead. I'd do it all again. Every fight, every scar, every nightmare. If it meant you'd wake up, I'd do it all again without hesitation. They lay quiet for a while. Then Taman's breathing slowed, deepened. He was falling asleep, real sleep, for the first time in years. Nara felt his body tense. His muscles went rigid. His breathing quickened, harsh and panicked. Small sounds escaped his throat. Words in languages she didn't know. Pleas and curses and names of people long dead. She remembered Heyun's warning. Don't wake him. So Nara lay there, holding Taman while his body fought invisible enemies while the killer surfaced in his sleep. She felt him twitch and jerk. felt him relive battles he'd fought to keep her safe, and she wept. Silent tears running down her face, understanding finally what her 10 years of sleep had cost him. He'd given her life, but he'd sacrificed his peace to do it. He'd become the weapon he'd tried to escape, transformed himself back into the killer he'd wanted to stop being. All for her. All to keep his promise. The nightmares lasted an hour. Finally, Taemin's body relaxed. He woke slowly, blinking in confusion, then tension when he realized where he was. "It's okay," Nara whispered. "You're safe. We're both safe. Did I hurt you?" His first question, always worry for her. "No, never." She touched his face, seeing the shame there. "Taemin, it's not your fault." "I'm broken," he said flatly. 10 years of killing broke something in me. I don't sleep well. I see threats everywhere. Sometimes I forget I'm not fighting anymore. Haeun deserves a better father. You deserve a better mate. I deserve the man who loved me enough to fight the galaxy, Nara said firmly. And Haeun has the father who kept us both alive. Yes, you're hurt. Yes, you carry scars. But you're not broken. You're here. You're with us. That's what matters. I don't know how to be anything but a weapon anymore. Then we'll figure it out together. We'll heal together." She pulled him close again. "We have time now. The war is over. The hunting is done. We can leave this station. Find that quiet world we talked about. We can build the life we dreamed of. Just us. Just us. You, me, and Haeun. A family." Taemin was quiet for a long moment. Then almost shyly he said, "I'd like that." The next morning they started planning. The station master knew of a world called Haven's Rest, far from both empires, settled by refugees and deserters from a dozen species. A place where no one cared about your past, only about what you contributed to the community. It's quiet, the station master said. Farms mostly. Small towns, the kind of place where a family could disappear and just be normal. Normal, Taemin repeated the word like a prayer. We can do normal? We can try, Nara said, taking his hand. They left Outpost Sejong 2 weeks later after Nara was strong enough to travel.